we are overrated, this is overrated, what is overrated? Is it an intro that is basically the same thing each and every time, and I need to come up with something, interesting, but it gets increasingly hard, and I'm already fed up with it. So, seventh episode, we're talking about an interesting change in the patch notes, and
Yep.
especially for the stats guys, and I guess we will talk about this with Baroy in the future, is that not only are the damage stats now displayed differently, so we have the hero damage as well as the barrier damage, and then
Yeah.
one stat for all of them, but the interesting thing is actually the averages. Could you explain why you think that is the interesting part?
Yeah. So let me just say that this is a number that I used a lot when I was trying to do my infographics for Epic Season 2, from the semifinals basically to all the way to grand finals. And the reason I used the 10 minutes slices was because Winston's lab already has averages per minute for all the stats we need, like death, skills, ultimates, usage, whatever. But this number, 0.345, it's really hard to grasp what it means. And you can't really connect it to anything else. But a number like 10 minute, and that 10-minute number, you can relate it to the duration, for example, of a round in escort hybrid or uh, assault map. Therefore, it's like the maximum duration. If they play the maximum duration is like 8 minutes. With overtime, it's close to nine something. So it's basically like a 10-minute duration. And this is the interesting part, that if you connect it to this round of the escort hybrid assault, then you have an idea of like how many kills on average a guy can get, a player can get on these maps. But the most interesting thing, and why is this is really important, is because up to this point, Blizzard used absolute stats and divided these stats with the numbers of the games a player has played, so as to give them in the career profiles, to give them an overview of the stats that they have accumulated over time. What's the problem with this? Why is this problematic in Overwatch specifically? Because the duration of the games are not the same, essentially. And if we go back and I also tried to do this route, like the absolute stats route, and Baroi stopped me and said me like, you can't do it. It's wrong. You're going to get the wrong impression. Let's show the people. I have also written it in an article, but let's show the people like what can you understand through absolute stats and what you can understand through average per 10-minute stats. So let's roll this image where we have the infographic I made with absolute stats for the Genji players back in the semifinals of Fake Season 2. So this is like the semifinal where Metathena was facing Lodi High. And you can see, for example, that Huaryu has like 50 kills on average, while Libero has 52 kills on average. And the deaths are almost the same, the average ultimates are the same. Let's go to the other semifinal though, where we can see Flower versus Haxal. And in that semifinal, the differences were striking. They were much more visible in a sense. So we see one player that has 45 average kills, and the other has 56 average kills. Now, the key detail here is to note how many matches each player has played and how many maps they have played. So Flower at that time, before the semifinal, had played 14 maps and 3 matches because of the double elimination bracket. On the other side though, Haxal, because he moved to the semifinal straight in the straight line, he didn't go through the double elimination to the lower bracket. He had played 2 matches and 9 maps played. Basically, this is the data we got from quarterfinal matches. It ignores all the group phase. So he had played 2 matches and 9 maps. So how do you divide the absolute stats on a match base or on a maps base? You can't. You will get significantly different numbers. And the only thing you can do is to go the average route. And let's roll the card with the average per 10 minutes numbers. And let's compare again the 2 players like Flower and Haxal. And we will see in that card that the differences that were striking before, like 45 kills to 56 and such. No. This impression was literally wrong. This impression was, it was brought forth by a wrong formula that ignored all these factors, like how many matches a player has played, how many maps he has played, what was the duration of each map, and therefore right now we see that basically Haxal had a better average death ratio, and his average kills were almost a bit lower, but almost on par. Like the 0.8 is not that big of a difference if we also keep in mind that Haxal was also flexing to Zarya or D.Va a lot in those games. Obviously, the average percentage skills favors, Flower. He was a more focused DPS player. But you see, all this data right now seems like these two players are almost on the same foot. Almost like Flower has the edge in some aspect, in the DPS aspect, in the kill aspect. Haxal has the edge in the average death aspect, and therefore you get another picture. You get another picture of these things. And why is this important? When it will be introduced to the ranked players and all these in the in-game competitive scene, because if you are a coach or if you are an analyst for a team and you want to fill a role in your team with another player, or you want to form a team because you're starting your own team in Overwatch, and you're looking at the stats of players right now, you will get the wrong impression of how better a player is compared to the other because of the way the formula has worked up to this point and was given by Blizzard. And this is what the Master Overwatch sites, all these sites use. So this is, for me, something that Blizzard needed to do. It will change a lot how people evaluate a player, how they see players under the light they see players. And yeah, I think it's a tremendous change that everyone should keep a lookout for how it will play out in the future.
Yeah, I think you also mentioned that there's differences in the amount of kills just fall on different types of maps, right? So
Yeah.
you also need to be mindful of how this statistic relates, to the amount of game modes this player has played in that specific regard. And if we think of okay, so Flower played 14 maps in 3 matches. That is almost the maximum amount of matches
played, yeah.
Yeah, and then given the fact that how the OGN format works, he has also played certain game modes a lot more than others, right?
Yeah.
So that also heavily skews the stats in that sense. If you consider, for instance, King, I don't know, is King of Dale the one that has the most kills per minute, or?
I haven't done this metric, but yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's a heavily kill focused game mode. I mean, you don't even the distance to the game to the point in the combat area is much shorter than in other games. For example, if we take into account the layout of the watch point department and the game mode, where it's in a scored game mode, sometimes back in the quad tank beta, because teams were holding far back towards the capping point, essentially the other team was wasting around 30 seconds or 40 seconds till they secure the first kill. This duration to the first kill, and obviously the subsequent kills, because if you secure the first kill, you also get the advance, and therefore you're going to secure more kills easily. It's 20 seconds or 30, 25 seconds for control maps. So essentially you get more kills in almost the same amount in average per minute, for example. So yeah, it's true. Up to a point you can prove it. I haven't proven it, but I can sense it will be happening.
Yeah.
Because of the way the control game mode works.
In general, contextualizing these kills is also, it also tells you a little bit about the playstyle of the team, right? How often they actually, for instance, give up and just die, right? Or how often they actually, go full aggro, or how many, for instance, if you look at Hanamura's stats, kills per minute, how long they need to finally cap the point, how good they are at cleaning the point or something, right? There's so much to contextualize again that it's probably wrong to just have this, one lump number. This guy kills X amount of players on all maps in 10 minutes. Is that at all like a good metric to have?
Well, if it's average per 10 minutes, at least it will relate to other players because it's boiled down to per minute activity, and therefore even if a player has played like 200 hours and then another player has played like 40 hours, I mean, even if it's the difference so much because it's average per minute, therefore you get a better impression of how big the gap difference is. I mean, the other guy may be even worse, even though he has played 200 hours and the other guy has played only 40 hours because it's average per minute. But if the other guy has played like with the past formula, the one that's it's still being used because these are the PTR, so the PTR changes and they're not introduced in the game. If a guy has played 50 games, okay, and the other has played 10 games, then obviously the first guy's metrics are escalated very differently
Yeah.
because he has played more time and he has accumulated more kills, and therefore uh, his 50 games actually create a more balanced number for him than the guy with the 10 games. And maybe it's really hard to evaluate 10 games on its the placement matches. So yeah, average per 10 minutes at least give us a better comparison for players. It's not the ultimate comparison. There are still many more factors like you mentioned, and we need to discuss this probably with Baroy, which like the guy behind Wizards Lab. He's the guy that always keeps all these variables into mind, and that's why his ratings, the ones he introduced, always also hold some value, although there are more factors that can be included in the formula. So yeah, there are many things. People need to understand that right now this will bring a different landscape into the Overwatch scene, and especially the ranked scene, for teams, for analysts, for people that want to compare players, and they do right now with these stats that the Blizzard provides from the in-game metrics that they had. It will change significantly. I mean, up to a point, I was thinking, for example, for Apex Season 2, when I saw the Lucio image, that Runner was like that hugely worse player than Toby, for example, because I was looking at the absolutes, like he had like double his deaths in absolute stats. And after that, I went ahead and do the average per minute and the average per 10 minutes, and I see like it's nominal. It's like 5.5 and 5.9. Like it's almost the same. It's not that big of a deal. Obviously, one of the two has an edge, but it's like a really small edge, not a huge gap. But when I saw the absolute numbers, I was like, oh my god, this guy is lame on Lucio. His average, his deaths are insane.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
I guess another prominent difference was, if I remember correctly, in the Apex Season 2 finals, Aska had like a lot more, or not a lot, but I guess significantly more kills on Tracer than Stitch. But that was obviously, like, depending on what map types you win, that obviously heavily skews the numbers, right? And also that
well,
your team wins, right?
well, in that specific game, if you look at the two players playing this in the same match, then you can use the absolute stats to compare them. So yeah, for example, because Eska won the game, he had better stats than Fitz. I mean, it's the absolute.
Yeah.
It's the obvious outcome, because since you have won, you also won the most engagements, therefore you have more kills. Well, not always, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, but if you take Eska's, for example, performance throughout Apex and Steve's performance throughout Apex, the numbers may be even, or maybe Steve is better. I mean, on average,
Hmm.
his average performance was better. And then just Eska had that extraordinary performance in the finals, and therefore he secured the win. I mean,
Yes. Sure.
obviously, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why we need this kind of comparison to be done, in a sense that you can evaluate also the course of the player throughout the tournament, and not only the specific moment or a specific match, because that may be a bad moment for him. That
Yeah.
may be like a tripping point, something it happens. I mean, people do not give this excuse to players, but other factors outside the game affect the player's performance. So just looking one metric isn't enough.
Yeah.
Just looking one match isn't enough, and therefore, yeah, this is a great change. I like it. I like it a lot. I obviously, because I also worked on this and made it visible through Windows Lab and all these infographics and that stuff. I'm happy because I see that Blizzard goes that road. There's still there's still stuff that can be done further down the line, and at least it's a nice and very important change. Even more important than getting people to how much hero damage they do, because even if you do like 100 damage to a soldier, if he heals it up, it's like you did 0 damage. I mean, obviously it counts up to a point, but you also need to evaluate how much of that damage you do on average, and it's crucial damage. It's not like
Yeah.
it's. I mean, if you go this direction, we're not going to end up talking soon, because
Yeah. Yeah,
it's a
you
really
need to.
wide and big topic to discuss. How
Yeah.
do you evaluate a player in a team game like Overwatch with all those game modes and
Yeah.
the duration, the skill sets, the compositions, all of these things? It's like it's mind blowing
Yeah,
if anyone wants to go that.
especially also because you have so many lessons that you can't get from other FPS, because sometimes it's like, okay, someone did damage and that's actually not good because he now loads up the
Yeah,
supports, and the support ults are more valuable than, I don't know, a Roadhog ult maybe, or in that specific instance too. So, these
yeah,
are not lessons we can get from other,
true, true.
like ADR is probably not a good measurement when it is in
No,
CS. It isn't in Overwatch, right?
no, 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 no. No, it's like it's in the same, like you can't evaluate the Winston the same you evaluate the Tracer. You can't evaluate the Zarya the same way you evaluate the Winston. I mean, even within the same classes, the same class, tank, defense, or whatever, the factors you should look out for Zarya are significantly different than Reinhardt, for example. And that's why people back in the day, when Zarya was a prominent one, Infinite Interact or whatever, and another team was playing Junkrat, essentially Junkrat was feeding Zarya energy to Zarya, because she was getting the buff lap, she was getting the chip damage from the nades of Junkrat, and therefore this helped her a lot in the future engagement, the next engagement, because she had full energy. So yeah, there are a lot of magics, but I like this magic. I am rejoiced that they did it. People should pay attention to it, because, like I said, a lot of the things that they now value, for people that look at stats, for example, they want to find the stat that make a player look better than the others or whatever. It's going to paint a different picture. And this is what I'm trying to do in this show, in what we're trying to do. It's like paint the picture as it is and not as people tend to think it is. Because right now, the Overwatch scene, it's still being shaped. The structure is still being built, and until you see the structure finalized, a lot of things that you now consider good or great or whatever, at that moment they're going to crumble, or they're going to be eliminated, or they're going to change. So it's really important to note these things, I believe.
Sure. Okay, so I guess, like, once again we have a situation of I told you so, but this time we're actually going a little bit meta here, right? We gotta up the game. And for those guys that have watched the last episode, and if you haven't, you kind of need to now watch the last one to get the in joke. But in the same sense that you now should never play more than 10 minutes, because then the metric actually makes sense. So just stop at 8 minutes, right? Like in your rank games. That's the new way to win. You also can't be worse if you never try, right, Rogue? And with this, we leave you with episode 7 in the bag. See you guys.